Yeah. All right. Kevin back here with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And today I'm here with John Bromley. John, welcome. So awesome to have you on the show today.
Thank you for having me. Really happy
You
to be here.
absolutely. I'm just kind of chuckling inside here because we've been sitting here talking and we're finally like, maybe we ought to hit the record button and actually do a podcast.
Yeah,
So,
time's flying, isn't
yeah.
it?
And so I wanna start off though. I want to give a shout out to Brianna and the whole team over at Interview Valet because that's how you and I got connected. And Brianna's
Mm,
probably not you probably don't work with Brianna, do you? Brianna is on my
no.
side of it. And so yeah, she works with podcast hosts. And so Brianna, over the last couple of years, has sent me some really amazing guests. So I'm just going to let you know, John, the bar is high. and,
Thanks,
and
Brianna.
and and it's because it's so awesome now because whenever I get an email from Brianna, it's kind of like Christmas morning because I never know what's going to be inside, but I'm like, oh, it's going to be good. I know that.
Uh,
And so
I like it.
and
I like it. Well, I
and
hope to
so
do my best.
yes. Well, I'll tell you, I was kind of jesting about the bar is high because, man, what's beautiful about this is we just get to have a heart-to-heart conversation today. My goal for this podcast, it's always been twofold. I want to give you our guest the opportunity to, just not only just talk about your business and what you do, but also just honor a person or more than one person that just been incredibly valuable to you in your business, in your life, and for our listeners who they too are entrepreneurs, founders, and CEOs. I just want to use this conversation, use these stories and experiences to just inspire them to place an intentional focus to create more meaningful, rewarding, profitable relationships in their own lives. And so I'm like totally stoked to have this conversation with you today, John. And I have the benefit of knowing already what you do and that you're doing some pretty darn awesome things. And so I'll just start off with a very simple question. What do you do and who do you serve, John?
Well, sometimes when I am asked that question, I like to throw out something that, causes people to scratch their chin
Uh-huh.
a little bit,
Uh-huh.
which is, I say I'm a charity banker. That's
Okay.
what I do. I'm
Okay.
a charity banker.
Yeah, that
And
does get a what?
what And what that means is I kind of act like a private banker to donors, whether they're individuals or people.
Okay.
And I give them access to the knowledge I have in terms of how to go about, giving. Uh, um, and I bring a lot of tools along with me, right? And other team members. So, I'm the founder and CEO of Charitable Impact. Charitable Impact is a donor advised fund, but that's something that acts just like a charity bank. So people give money into it, they get a tax receipt right away, then they can determine how to use those charity dollars to create the impact they want to see. And so my role is partly the entrepreneur who founded and creates it and gives it some vision and mission and some guidance. But why I'm in that business is because there's a lot of people with a lot of great hearts and a lot of great minds and some deep wallets. And I don't think they've ever had anywhere to go to get cause neutral advice on how to go about their giving. And I just happen to know a little bit about that area, and so
Yeah. Yeah.
started to focus on it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So what inspires you most about the work you get to do and the impact that you get to make, John?
Well, I'm inspired by seeing other people become inspired,
Okay.
to use that language almost, because one of the things that charitable giving does for um, people, particularly a whole bunch of people, is it opens them up to this new world of purpose and meaning that they may not have known they had access to before. Because charitable giving is really about investing your time and talent and money into the things that you care most about, that you love, right? And then having an impact on that with your time, your talent, and your money. And there's so many different examples, but like think like I myself, and here I am kind of wearing this like soccer club jacket. I coached soccer for years, and how many times did people sort of thank me for doing that, and how many times did I think, thanks for letting me do it. Like,
Mhm.
it was so good for me,
Yeah. Yeah.
hanging out with my own kids, but like getting to hang out with kids, this unique time of life, getting to pass on a little bit about a sport that I love and care about, and get to learn, how to speak publicly at some level. I mean, if you can keep a group of kids' attention, 10-year-olds, you're going to be pretty good in the boardroom.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, I love that right there because I can totally relate. I get people thanking me all the time for doing what I do, making introductions that lead to five-figure, six-figure, seven-figure collaborations and stuff. And I'm thinking like, man, thank you for just letting me hold this role in your life, and I feel like, man, I'm the one who just, I guess to do what I feel like is my life calling, and we were talking about this before. I mean, you're the same exact way. You're the same exact way, and we're just so grateful that we get to do this work and make this impact that we get to make and stuff, and the people that just enable us, if you will, to be able to do that. I'm pretty doggone
So,
appreciative of them.
so Kevin, I would guess, or I would start with the assumption, the hypothesis that you're probably a good donor. And the reason is because of that mindset you just shared.
Okay.
Really good donors um, get more out of it than they think they put in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's one of these interesting things about the whole charity world. Everyone's so focused on what impact did you create? And like anything in life, your first time doing anything, you're not going to be a whiz kid. So, it takes time and focus, and so the people who learn to have joy from that, and they go, wow, look at what I'm learning. And I'm so grateful to even be able to be a part of this journey to try find a cure for cancer, or to try, build, maintain this homeless shelter in my neighborhood, or to, create this church where there isn't one, for example, and who would kind of go, thanks for letting me be a part of it. Those are the people with that mindset that in my experience become the best donors.
Yeah. 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 That totally makes sense. That totally makes sense. So, and we don't have to name names here for this, but what is a reason? And I don't know, do you refer to the people you help as clients or probably donors, right?
I call them donors, but
You call them
they're clients
okay.
too. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I'll just use the right because I mean I usually so what is a result? And you have to, like I said, we don't have to name names or nothing, but what is a result that you have helped a donor get that you are just absolutely and incredibly proud of?
Well, I try to achieve one thing in all donor relationships. It's easier said than done, unfortunately, but it also gets me out of bed in the morning, so that's cool. Our vision at Charitable Impact is to make, intentional giving part of everyday everyday
Mhm.
life for people, right? And every day mean like one word, not like every single moment, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But just as something that you're part of regularly. So the joy I get, and back to your inspirational question, like the stuff where I get inspired is when I see someone um, get over the humps that are usually needed for someone to get over, to start to incorporate giving into who they are on a regular basis. So
Mhm.
I'm not as motivated, like, so quantum of money isn't as important to me. Um, the type of cause that they choose to go after isn't important to me. Again, that's a bit like, again, why I describe myself as a banker, because like, bankers shouldn't care what specific stock someone chooses. They should care that someone gets into investing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Um, so so what inspires me is when I see someone go from not being a giver or being a sporadic giver who only reacted, for example, to being asked for money, into someone who becomes more proactive in
Okay.
terms of how they go about giving, by building giving into their life. Again, whether they're using their time, their talents, and or their money. So
Yeah.
that's what I go for.
Okay. Okay. So I love that analogy of, yeah, a sporadic giver or a sporadic donor to an intentional donor. And that they just make that part and parcel of who they are and what they do, you know.
Exactly.
And
You
yeah.
know, if I was a fitness banker instead of a charity banker, you know,
Mhm.
it'd be like, I'm just trying to get people off the couch. I want
Yeah.
people to be out, you know, out doing workouts, whether they're doing yoga or playing soccer or playing basketball
Yeah.
or doing ballet or going for hikes. I don't care.
Yeah.
Or it's not that I don't care, it's that I want it to be about them, whatever
Yeah.
keeps them going towards exercise, right? And
Yeah.
so, yeah, so that's what a charity banker does, in my view, is it
Yeah.
helps someone um, understand how to navigate and participate comfortably in the giving world, providing them, you know, human knowledge support as well as tools that helps them go about their experimentation and what they do as they go about their giving life.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, okay, so now that we've got a little bit of context set here, um, I'm gonna switch gears just a little bit. We're just gonna move over and just like now start kind of focusing our conversation around relationships and stuff. So, um, I'll start by asking you. So, John, have you ever met or been introduced to a person or persons who completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And I'm just really excited to hear your story and your experience around this topic of relationships.
Well, the first thing I'd say is I've been very blessed to have had many different encounters with many different people who have had material impact on my life. You know, who I am, how I think, how I behave. And, you know, if I was talking to my younger self, this isn't your question, so sorry, but the thing
Oh,
I'd want myself to hear is you got to be open to help, right? You got to be open to feedback. You don't have to take feedback. You don't have to accept it all the time, but you have to listen to it. And you know, and the reason I say that is because there's one person in my life who stands out head and shoulders above everyone else, as that kind of like key mentor. And I didn't really recognize that person played that role in my life. At least my business life, my accidental life as an entrepreneur, until I was almost 30. And the reason I say that is because the person in my world who's had the outsized impact on me is my father.
okay.
And not because, how do you say this right? But I'll just say it what comes to mind. Not because, like, you know, my dad was and is a good dad who loves me and nurtures me and coaches me into opportunities and helps me deal with failures, but because where do you learn what you need to know to become a charity banker?
Right.
And
I didn't
and
even know
the
there was
answer,
such a thing.
you're not the only one. And in my life, the answer is I learned it all from my dad. And again, not because he's a great dad, but because my father was one of arguably two serious pioneers of charity law and charity finance in Canada. I'm Canadian.
Okay.
So
Okay.
my dad is in the charity nerd community, which is very, very, very small. My dad is known to be one of the global experts on the space. And so here he is, just my dad, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And yet the brief story, I don't want to go on too long because you ask great questions, but like the brief story is, um, and I'll share one favorite memory or memories. But the brief story is, I went to university. I graduated. I started my world in commerce, kind of corporate finance, investment banking stuff, and leftovers after several years having learned tons. Super grateful for what I learned there, but just not being a culture fit for it. And I started interacting with my dad as a father, kind of being like, "Hey, I might actually want to change my career here." you know, mid to late 20s, having been successful. And that was the start of the accidental pathway that led me down the road of kind of going, holy crap, this guy knows a whole bunch of stuff that is super cool, but like you can't just read online and learn about in a
Yeah.
textbook, and there's no classroom for.
Yeah.
Um, and then the funny memory is like I played a ton of sports growing up. So every weekend, my dad and mom both played a huge role in sacrificing their time, which I do now for my own children, to take me to sports games, for example. And I remember now my dad yapping at me about, what I now know was charity stuff and stuff going on in his workplace, and me kind of going, that's in one year, out the next, boring, and I think back now and I go like, now that I'm, maybe a little bit of an expert in philanthropy myself, I go, how much of that stuff did I just learn from osmosis?
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Wow. What a unique relationship. I mean, and I know I was telling you this before we started the record, but before we hit the record button for this interview, that out of the 300 plus episodes that I've done for this podcast, there is probably just a handful that like honored their dads and but what you have is not only was your dad an inspiration for you, but man, he's such a powerful mentor on a thing that like it was that he was a world class expert at and such a unique thing that like there's so few people in the world who even do what you do. And so um I was trying to think of okay. So what is give me an example of a situation, and I'm sure you better come up with lots of examples to this. And I just want to challenge you to come up with one. But what is a example of a situation where you personally got to make a really substantial impact, and maybe even in the moment it might have even surprised you, going like, wow, look at that. Look what happened there. My actions caused that to happen. But yet, you also know that would have never even been possible if not for the relationship you have had with your dad. What's an example of something like that, John?
Well, one thing that comes to mind is something I credit him for sure. Because
Okay.
I used to, in very small circles, brag about this being a superpower of his, which is, someone coming in to see him, but us, for advice on, philanthropy and how to structure it and, how to go about doing it. And, kind of go, oh, well, what are you thinking? Like, what kind of amount are we talking about here? And then, oh, well, this is the donor kind of, oh, I'm thinking maybe, 50, maybe 100 grand, and maybe I could get talked into $200,000 if, it really worked well. And 2 months later, leaving with a private foundation with $15 million in it.
Wow. That's a little bit more than the 200 grand he was thinking to start with.
Yeah, yeah. And so um, there's all sorts of reasons why that can happen, but it's rooted in relationship development and expertise.
Yes.
And I've had a few scenarios now where people kind of come in going, oh, I want to make giving a bit part of my how my family goes about doing things, and starting with what sounds like a relatively low money in a context of high net worth,
Yeah.
and then shifting how they think about it and making pretty large structured gift plan, as they kind of call it, contributions towards charity. And so I can think of a couple scenarios where that's been the case, and I always sort of honor my dad in my own mind with a smirk or something when that happens, because um, I would have never thought that was possible, and it just changed it. I
Right.
mean, some people
Right.
talk about the growth mindset, with entrepreneurs. Like, it's kind of like a growth mindset in the philanthropic advisory space, where you have to be able to see beyond the barriers that people build around themselves.
Yeah. 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 Man, it's like I see so much of myself in you, John, because, I mean, if you would have told me even a couple of years ago that I would be having the kind of conversations I'm having today with the kind of people that I'm talking with today, and facilitating, being this conduit of trust for the scope of deals and collaborations that I'm now a part of. It's just like I could have never imagined it. And yet it's become reality.
Mm.
And I am so grateful to just the people in my life that have just placed their trust in me, and just, and just like you, that you allowed them to see a bigger vision, and that, like, you know what? Yeah, 200,000 is not enough for this. We need to do considerably more than what I was originally thinking. Yeah, no. And
Mm.
like, how awesome is it that you can have that kind of, because you know what? You're not the beneficiary of that money. It's not like that's going in your pocket. That's going to some other organization that, like, and I can assure you, they're incredibly grateful for your role in that. you know.
Whether they say thank you or not.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And the other thing I'd say on that, thanks for saying that. That's really cool that we kind of that you see that in me. That's wonderful to hear about you. Uh, the thing I'd say is that, while the examples that come to mind and to accentuate the story, it's easier to see with larger numbers. But I would say that, like my mission at Charitable Impact, and why I built Charitable Impact, is to increase access to participation in and the benefit people feel from giving.
Yeah.
And so, I would share stories with you, with more time, where it's like, oh, it didn't go from 200 grand up to, 15 million. It went from, like, never giving except maybe, at the till, when asked, buying a coffee, to, starting to give $100 a month, and right. So to me, it's not the quantum that matters. It's the action to participate, to start, and then from there, the actions that keep you in the game after the fact. That's my goal in life. So whether you're a big donor, a small donor, doesn't interest me. Again, kind of like a banker who's building a bank. Like, banks might make more money off high net worth clients because of how the world works, but banks don't exist if they don't have tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of small deposit,
Yeah.
people who build the assets under management, at scale, as opposed to through centralized accounts. So, my real interest is in, helping people get into the game and staying in the game of philanthropy, regardless of how much money they have to give away, and regardless of what causes they ultimately want to create impact for.
Yeah, yeah. And that, man, I know when we spoke the first time, and I found out about what you did, and I started telling you about the experience that I had of, and what's interesting is I started a family foundation all the way back in 2008, because my business was taking off like crazy in that year, and I knew I was going to have a really big tax bill, and I'm like, man, I don't. I'd rather do something like that and put money there than just give it to Uncle Sam. And this friend of mine, Jeff Ziegler, was the one, because he had started a family foundation and told me you should start a family foundation and get your 501(c) status, and you could just put a bunch of money in there before the end of the year, and it's tax free whatever you put in there. And what's interesting is, as soon as we get done, I'm actually talking with Jeff today too. And it just is total fluke that we just happened to have a call. And I haven't talked with him in years. And so,
Well, so thank Jeff on my
yeah,
behalf for being your
yeah,
philanthropic advisor and being there at the right moment to, to encourage you to do what you use a private foundation or a donor advised fund, which is what Charitable Impact runs. Both of those are donor centered tools that help people get into and stay in the charitable game.
yeah,
So
yeah.
well done, Jeff.
Well, and I'll tell you what you just talked about, the experience, because like my motivation for starting that was like, I don't want to pay a big tax bill. I'd rather put it there. But then we went to this workshop. The company that helped us put that foundation together and did all the legal work and created it. They hosted this workshop in 2009. We go to this workshop, and I just heard all these family foundation owners talking about just what they're doing with their foundations. I'm like, wow. I mean, that is so cool. I want to start experiencing that. And so we've that's what we've done over the years. And I know I was sharing some experiences that have happened with our kids. And just like there's this orphanage in Jamaica we've been supporting for years, and we go down there and we spend time there. And like every year at this time of year, we're coming up on the end of the year. And we started doing this all the way back in '09. We just give, I have four older kids. We give each of them, we just give them access to the debit card for the foundation. They go choose a family. They find a family either through like the local food bank or a local church or what have you. They just find a family that's in need, and we will just go and just kind of sponsor that family and we'll find out what the kids want, what the kids need, buy groceries, and just like, and each of our older kids and their spouses go do this. And this has been like like the first year we ever did this, my oldest daughter came to me afterwards and was like, Dad, man, I wish this was my job. I wish I just got to do this all the time. It was so incredibly rewarding for them. And for me, man, to see my kids get such a heart for giving and serving others. And I'll tell you what, you take your kids to a Jamaica orphanage and they get to experience what those kids are like. You don't got to say a doggone word. On the bus ride back to the hotel, they're all talking like, wow, we got it really good, Dad. You don't got to say nothing to them. They figure it out, and
Yeah.
it changes their heart. It changes their heart when they have that kind of an experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, thank you for sharing that, by the way. Um, you know what it makes me think of? It's just so Charitable Impact has three beliefs that we center around. And the first belief is that everyone, literally everybody, has something in the world that they want to create change for. Right. So everyone has something that they want to create change for. Good people, bad people, rich people, poor people, everyone has that. Uh, and everyone has something to give towards creating that change, right? Whether it's your time, your talent, and or your treasure, right? Your ties, your social connections. You've got something to contribute towards making that change that you want to see. Now, the third belief is what I'm hearing in what you say, and I think it's under focused on, which is when you give, you get something in return,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So what I love about hearing your story is the impact's happening in Jamaica, and you're probably caring about that and you want to, know it's relatively efficient and all those types of things. But, without going so far into like, well, is this all about selfishness? But like, how do you learn that you really do have it well or good? You know, if you're not exposed to some of the things that you've exposed your kids to, how would you ever come to even think that maybe I could do a job with this type of work if you weren't exposed to that type of stuff. So when you give, you get something in return. And this is one of the reasons why people should give, right? It's not just about benefiting the community, it's about creating opportunity and learning and meaning and purpose in your own life.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So there are selfish reasons to give.
Totally.
Right. And the
Totally.
reason why I like focusing on it a little bit is because, first of all, no one focuses on the second part is because, like, when you think about how you spend your time and money in life, how much of it do you spend on things that you absolutely distaste, have a huge distaste for? I mean, at the end of the day, like, and this assumes some means, but like, do you live in a house you really hate? Probably not. Do you live it if you have the means? Do you live in a neighborhood you just have absolute like dislike for? Do you eat foods that you hate? Do you play sports that you don't like? You know, that's not, do you study things in school that ultimately you don't like? Do you stay in jobs that you don't like? There are scenarios where that happens, where you have no means, you feel like you don't have any agency. But, in so many circumstances, the answer is complete. Of course not. Of course, I play sports that I love. Of course, that I live in a house that I enjoy enough. Neighborhoods that I want to hang out with, friends that I like. Um, and it's important to see philanthropy that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. Hmm. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation today. And, for anybody who might be listening to this and thinking, man, you know what, Kev, I really like John. I love who he is. I love how he shows up. I love the way he thinks about stuff. And he even shared some stuff today that like, wow, I never thought about that before. And maybe they're curious about how they can get involved in more of this. Any websites, any resources we can share with folks, John?
Yeah, well, like, look, thank you for asking. I mean, Charitable Impact is the name of our organization. We're at charitableimpact.com. Look us up there. I love it when people just reach out with an email or a phone call to check in and see what's up, or just poke around, ask questions. And we're on social media. At We Are Charitable.
Okay.
So look us up that way. Um, um, Anything that gets people off the couch and starting to participate more in giving is conversation that's worth having. And so I appreciate being able to talk a little bit about philanthropy. Appreciate you making it a bit of a focus, Kevin.
You bet. Any last thing that you feel led to share, John, before we call it a wrap?
Sure. One of the words I see even my own team use, is intention. You know, if you intend to, you know, be a good person, et cetera, et cetera. I think intention's critically important. I'm a big fan of intention, but it's action. It's doing stuff for real in the real world, not just thinking about it, that creates change in the world. And so, what we want to encourage is people act philanthropically. I mean, you can dip your toe in the pool. You don't have to jump in, into the deep end to start. But just the message I really want people to hear is that, like, philanthropy is like exercise or other habits, eating well. You actually have to do it in order to create the change.
Yeah.
You can't just intend to get, fit and to eat well. You have to actually do it. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to work out every single day for hours and hours a day. You can it can be incremental. It can also just be a small part of who you are and how you use your time and money. Um, but you actually have to do something.
Yeah.
And when you do that, though, you get something in return. And one of the things I hear from seasoned philanthropists, particularly as they get older and towards the end of their life, they go, the one thing I don't regret doing? I don't regret, spending my time, talent, and money on, creating change for the things that I cared most about. I've never heard anyone regret, generally speaking, doing that. And it's partly because of how much they get out of it
Yeah.
by so doing.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, um, I'll just throw this out there too, because this it was the experience that I was having back in 2008 that caused me to just be so responsive and proactive when Jeff suggested you should start a family foundation, just like I have. Um, was because I wanted to be in control of where my money went versus just saying this is all going to go in taxes, and there is something to be said for that. And because we don't have to pay it all in taxes, we can choose and say, you know what? Instead of paying this in taxes, I'm going to give it to an organization or something that I believe in, that I want to support. And I'm going to take that proactive step and I'm going to give it there instead of over here. And we can totally choose that. And I have had entrepreneurs reach out to me and go like, Kev, you know what? I've got a big tax bill coming, and you know what? I'd rather give it to somebody else. And man, I'm just like so glad that we got connected, because now I've got a source that from now on I'll just refer people your way and stuff. And
Hey, man,
so
everyone needs a charity banker,
yeah,
you know?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And so, um, well, I'll tell
that's
you,
awesome.
I want to thank you so much for taking
Yeah.
the time to have this conversation and just share from your heart, John. And I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you. And I'm excited to share this with folks. And like I said, I'm glad that I got a new resource and a new friend to tell people about and stuff. And so,
Yeah, likewise. Likewise. Well,
yeah.
thank you for having me on, and thank you for valuing the conversation around philanthropy. And given
Absolutely.
the center of your question today, at least on mentorship, I guess I should give a shout out and say, Dad, thank you and I love you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. Well, thank you again, John. Really appreciate it.